All right, thanks for joining us for today's webinar. Today's webinar is going to cover website security and SEO. Google has made a recent announcement about how SSL certificates affect SEO, so we're kind of going to cover that, and also just the basics of what is SSL and how you can apply it to your website. With me today is Vince Lynch from the SSL store. He's going to give you a rundown of everything you need to know about SSL. So take it away, Vince.
Hey everyone, so today we're going to be talking about SSL, SEO, and Google's recent announcement that using SSL encryption improves your search ranking. So we have a couple slides here, and we're going to go over the Google announcement, what SSL is if you're unfamiliar, and how you get SSL, and then go a little bit more into depth about how the Google announcement works and how you're going to get that search result ranking boost, and then we're going to go do a little extra reading if you need to go more in depth. So the first thing is Google recently made an announcement that if you use SSL, you will get a search ranking boost in your search results on Google. And SSL also is called HTTPS encryption. So just so that's clear, and we're going to switch back and forth in the terms as we go through. And when they made the announcement, they said it's only going to be a lightweight signal for now. So right now, when you get an SSL certificate and you start using it, you're just going to get a small boost. But you are going to get that boost, and they're keeping it small for now because they want to give webmasters time to transition smoothly and work out the kinks. And Google also, obviously, since this is a new result ranking or a new search signal that Google's doing, they also need time to perfect their formula, stuff like that. And when they did a test adjustment earlier this year, they saw improvements in the search results quality. So they know that favoring encryption is something that improves the results, and that's better for the end user. So this is definitely something they're going to stick with. And Google's been making a big move in the last few years to encourage encryption and to sort of push people towards it. So I personally believe that this is going to become a bigger and bigger search result ranking boost for you. So it's only going to get better from here if you're using SSL. So first thing to go over is what is SSL? So SSL stands for Secure Sockets Layer, and that's a protocol that works between your client's browser and your web server, to encrypt their data. And it's a digital file. It goes on your server. Just think like an image file or an HTML file does. And once it's on there, it's going to work between that browser and that web server automatically to start encrypting their data. And so, think about when you go to a site like Amazon.com or Facebook or your banking site, when you log in, you don't want to send over your password, your credit card number, your address, stuff like that, just plain text through the web. You want to encrypt it, and SSL is going to help you do that, so that the only person who can read your information that you've sent over is that web server that you're sending the information to. No hackers or anyone else can get to it. And that's obviously important both for the end user and for the person owning the web server. They don't want their customers' information to get leaked, and I certainly don't want someone else to end up with my credit card number or anything like that. So how can you tell if a site has SSL? There's a bunch of indicators. The easiest one to look for is the green padlock icon, and that's right next to right in the address bar in all major browsers. There's going to be some form of this green padlock icon, and that indicates that there is a secure session. You also see on this screenshot HTTPS. That also indicates that you're using SSL, and the only way to get HTTPS encryption is with an SSL certificate. And so that's the easiest way to see. You can also see you might be able to see a trust logo. These are optional, so it's up to the web server owner to present these. But these come with all SSL certificates. You get basically that vendor's logo to display, and you might see some big names on here. Norton, powered by Symantec, is the biggest name in SSL. They're the biggest vendor, and obviously, that's a name that everyone knows. If you've been using a computer at all since the 90s, you've probably heard the Norton name or the Symantec name. So some of these names are pretty big, and some of these logos you definitely do want to secure or display once you've gotten SSL from that provider. GeoTrust and Thought and Komodo are also really big names in SSL. And these are logos that, as this website developer, you definitely want to display on your login page or on your checkout page, because when customers see this, they're going to go, oh, you know what, I recognize this name. And it means something to me that Norton or GeoTrust or et cetera has secured this page, and that this website has the backing of that company. And then another trust indicator is the green address bar. This is only enabled on premium certificates called extended validation or EV certificates, but this is going to be the absolute best visual indicator. As you can see, compared to that other screenshot, it just had the padlock icon. You get a huge green visual indicator that your site's secure. It shows the name of your company and as well as the locality, and that's also standardized across all browsers. And all these things we've talked about so far are standard. The SSL industry worked together with the web browser developers to make sure that this is not something that you need to plug in for or anything like that. This is enabled by default on all computers, even on mobile, on your iPhone, on your Android phone. You'll be seeing the green padlock, the green address bar, and HTTPS when you're using a secured SSL connection. So who needs SSL? Traditionally, the idea was that you only needed it if you were an e-commerce site or something like that. But nowadays, it's important for everybody because there's things that hackers can do even with non-essential information, and these are called site attacks that let them maybe hack your site or do something to figure out the identity of a customer. So it's important to be encrypting everything that a customer is doing on your site from the moment they get there to the moment they leave. So if you are an e-commerce site or any site storing user information, it's definitely essential to have an SSL. You don't want customers to just be sending over their information, plain text that puts you and them at risk and at basically legal liability if anything happens. So you definitely want one if you're selling anything or collecting user information. But also if you're just a blog, an informational site, something like that, you also want to get one. First of all, that's going to help you take advantage of this new Google rankings boost. And if you're doing other stuff for your SEO, this is another really easy, guaranteed boost and something that you can do. And it's not too expensive either. You can get certificates for less than $50 a year. So it's definitely an affordable and a great way to help your SEO rankings, and also just to provide your customers with encryption, which is becoming more and more important for a lot of people. So, sorry, how do you get an SSL certificate? You can go on Google and just Google anything, SSL provider, SSL certificates, and you'll see tons of listings. My company is a value-added reseller, and we provide support and knowledge base, configuration checkers, and also other great tools that especially if it's the first time you're getting SSL certificate, a lot of things to help make sure it's quick and easy. But there's tons of other providers out there, and when you do go and get one, you'll more or less, the nice thing is that you're going to get encryption, and you're getting validation because all providers give you that. And it is fairly technical though to get one, to install it, and to set it up right. So if you don't know terms like FTP or a whois listing or your web server operating system, then you might want to pass this off to someone else at your company or get a contracted developer or IT person to help you out with this, because you definitely don't want to configure this wrong. And so to go a little bit more into exactly how this Google ranking works, if you're familiar with SEO, stuff like that, this ranking is applied page by page. So you need to be using SSL on every page of your site to take full advantage of this. If you're just using it on the login page or the checkout page, you're only going to get the boost for that page. And in a lot of cases, Google might not even crawl your checkout page. So you definitely want to enable it server-wide. And when you do that, that's called always on SSL. Also called HTTPS everywhere. That's the name Google has for their campaign. And when you set this up really easy when you're configuring your SSL certificate, you don't need to get a special certificate or pay more or anything like that to use it everywhere. It's just a configuration manner. And as soon as you do get that SSL certificate up and Google indexes those new versions of your page, the HTTPS versions, then you get that ranking. So if you're using Google Webmaster Tools and you check the index pages through Webmaster Tools, you'll be able to see exactly when that ranking is applied. And if you're a sort of a Webmaster Tools guru, HTTPS is viewed as a separate site for Google. So when you do make this transition, you'll want to make sure that Google understands that this is your new site that you've moved over, and so they can redirect all of your search ranking and all that relevant data they've already collected to that new version of your site. And if you have been in the IT industry for a while, you might have heard in the past that SSL is bad for your site, that it makes it slow, that there's compatibility issues. That's totally not true anymore. At this point, the SSL industry works very closely with the browsers, and there's more or less full compatibility. You don't have to worry about someone not having support or anything like that. And it doesn't slow your site down. With modern computers and network speeds, the overhead of encrypting and decrypting information is basically negligible, even on mobile. So you don't have to worry about that. And when Google made their announcement, they gave some tips on how to do this, how to make this switch to HTTPS effectively. So we're going to go over a couple of them. The first one is they, in their announcement, said use a 2048-bit certificate. And I thought that was actually a bit confusing because when you're buying a certificate, you don't have to worry about that. All certificates are going to be now required to use a 2048-bit private key. So when you're buying your certificate and filling out your order and getting that issued certificate at the end of the process, you'll know it's 2048-bit. You don't have to worry about that. You don't have to look for anything special. Anything that you buy, any certificate you buy from a well-known certificate authority will meet that requirement. Another tip Google gave is to avoid absolute links. This is really important for your development team to take a look at, because if you're specifying an HTTP protocol in any of your links in your site, that's going to cause issues if you've moved your site over to HTTPS only. So you can see in this screenshot, in that first example, that's a script that would be blocked if you were enforcing HTTPS through your server, because when your server tries to load your own script that's not through HTTPS, it's going to say, no, I can't do that. I have to use SSL. So you just want to make sure that when you're working with your development team, your IT department, that they've checked and made sure they haven't hard-coded any of these old links in. And Google gives a great suggestion to use relative URLs, both for the protocol and the link location. And Google has a bunch of tips and more detail on how you can do this in this next tip, actually. They have this article called Move a Site with URL Changes. And this is a huge checklist. It goes through every single step that a webmaster could possibly need to make when you're doing a transition from HTTP to HTTPS. So if you're making this change for the first time, you definitely want to check this article out. It'll go over exactly how to avoid absolute links. It'll go over how to set up other things like HSTS, which will help Google just make sure they index those HTTPS pages faster. So there's a ton of tips in there, and it's definitely a great resource to check out if you want to make sure you're doing everything exactly by Google's recommendations. And if you want to see that original announcement Google made, that where they announced that SSL and HTTPS will now boost your SEO rankings, you can check that out at bit.ly/SSL SEO. That'll bring you right to their announcement, and as well as the rest of the tips they gave with how to make that smooth transition.
All right, great, Vince. Really appreciate the information. Good, solid information on SSL there. One question I would like to ask you is, could you expand on the difference between validating a basic certificate and a more premium certificate, like one of the EV certificates you discussed?
Yeah, totally. So there's different levels of certificates. There's 3 validation levels. The basic is called a DV. That stands for domain validated. And that means that the only thing that they're checking when you apply for a certificate is that you do indeed own that website, so that the SSLstore.com really is yours. And they do that really simply through email verification, like you're signing up for Facebook or a web forum, something like that. And then the other end of the scale, the top level validation, is called EV. It stands for extended validation. And that's going to be a full check of your business. So this is only for actual legally registered companies. And all the big companies use it. We use it. Attracta uses it. Twitter, Amazon, Facebook, stuff like that. And that's going to get you that full green address bar that we showed you in the picture earlier. And when you apply for one of those, the vendor you're working with, such as Symantec, will check with your registering agency, such as in Florida, it's the Florida Secretary of State, to see that you actually are that company and that you're legally registered, all your paperwork's in order. And they help you, guide you through. They send you emails, let you know what you need to do. And we actually have a great guide over at our site too on how to go through that EV process, smoothly. It is a lot more work than the DV, but it's also standardized, so it's totally easy to figure out. And if Yeah, I think if you're a big company or a high value e-commerce site, you definitely do want to get that green address bar. It's worth the effort, and there's studies that also show that it definitely does improve customer trust, and that customers recognize that green address bar, and it improves conversion rate, reduces bounce time, stuff like that. So we think it's a great certificate, and a great feature and great value.
Excellent. Great information there. At Attracta, we have partnered with the SSL store. We are offering SSL certificates, and we're trying to be a little bit more full service, help you get them implemented on your site and stuff like that. There's plenty of vendors out there if you're looking for SSL certificates. But we appreciate you joining us today. Hopefully this information has been useful. I'd like to thank Vince Lynch for joining me today, and have a great afternoon.